I will finish with a little bit of dreaming aloud. What I'm going to say now is not on the agenda of any legislator, but if we think about what should be done to achieve our two objectives of capital productive use and nobody can take the whole system down, I would suggest two very, very, very simple measures that I think would do the job. The first measure would be to redefine what a bank is. What about defining a bank as a deposit-taking institution that does at least 51% of its activity into lending to non-financial corporations and households? End of story. You may think, well, this is very simple. Yes, it is. But doesn't he know what a bank is about? I mean, a bank takes deposits and lends money. Well, no. The largest banks in this part of the world dedicate 10, 12, sometimes 15%. I said 15, as low as 15. Some of them under 10% of their activity into lending to non-financial corporations and households. If you define a bank as doing at least 51%, and I'm saying 51% for many reasons. One is political, because obviously this is highly political. Very easy to explain. Anybody in the street can understand that a bank should be lending money. You will resolve so many things at a time. First of all, the super giants that are, the 2 trillion euro giants will have to shrink by 60, 70, 80% to meet that rule. And it will be very, very difficult for them to say, oh, no, a bank should not be about lending money because there's all the rest. Why only 51%? Well, because precisely there is all the rest and nobody's disputing, or nobody. It can be argued that the rest has some importance and some interest in many situations. And it will also solve, because sometimes you hear the idea of you should limit the size of banks. Say a bank should not be bigger than 100, 200 billion, whatever currency, total balance sheet. And obviously there's a cliff effect. How do you decide? And even if you've decided with very clever arguments, once you've decided, if you have one more euro or dollar or whatever assets, you move from one category to the other. So this is, simply say a bank is a deposit-taking institution that lends at least 51% of its balance sheet to non-financial corporations and households. That will bring money to productive use, and we know that one of the privileges of commercial banks is to have access to central bank liquidity or refinancing. Okay, if you devote central bank refinancing to those sort of institutions, mechanically, central bank liquidity will go to the economy instead of going to financial gains. And nobody's disputing, because being used to public arguments with policymakers and financial lobby and everything, you don't want to get into messy debates about what's good, bad, moral issues, because that gets nowhere in the policy-making world. But you can say, look, I have nothing against all the work on securities markets and everything. Simply, this is not a bank's job. This is a securities firm job, and securities firm can do its job without access to central bank money. The other thing is, we said no bank should take the system down when it fails. Well, you should have what European jargon calls minimum required eligible liabilities, MREL. That is a minimum amount of liabilities. Well, banks should issue a minimum amount of liabilities that are bail-inable in order to protect the system. The actual legislation that has been passed in the EU says that banks should have at least 8% minimum required eligible liabilities, i.e. bail-inable liabilities. It's much better than nothing. In the previous crisis, it would have covered the vast majority of cases, but conceptually, I have a problem to limiting this to 8%, because effectively what that means is that for the rest, banks' liabilities for the rest, apart from that 8%, which is a big improvement. I'm not saying it's not an improvement, will still benefit from the implicit safety net from the public safety net, and that has perverse effect, including diverting financial resources from productive use. Because I haven't had time to get into this today, but it can be shown that the safety net provided by the state to banks not only puts taxpayers at risk, but has the effect of diverting financial resources from productive use to go into extremely risky zero-sum game, speculation, because if you're in a game where there's more hazard, if you win it's for you, if you lose it for someone else, why bother? So clearly, safety net is an incentive to divert financial resources from productive use. So we should have a much higher level of bail-inable liabilities in banks, and that would have a very mechanical effect of bringing, I would say, discipline to the banking world. That would say, hey, in that case, if I'm going to be lending money to that bank, I'm going to watch what they're doing with the money I'm lending to them, as opposed to considering that I will get my money back regardless. I will finish here saying that on the one hand, and it has to be recognized, I've said it several times, but I think it's important to say that many things have been done and that a number of sincere people have moved things. But I'm very worried that effectively, for the reasons I've given, we're not yet where we would want to be if we stick to the definition I gave of what better serving society means. Today, the issuance of CLOs this year will be for the first time higher than it was in the pre-crisis years, above $100 billion. I'll give you another example which really terrified me. I discovered that a few days ago. Citibank, which was one of the biggest recipients of taxpayers' money, of bailout, in the US. They received, if I'm correct, $45 billion of taxpayers' money. They had unlimited guarantee of their liabilities at a time where they were sitting on $300 billion of losses, of potential losses. Okay, so huge recipient of bailout money, taxpayers' money in the US. The derivatives book of Citibank since the crisis has grown by 65%. 65% increased in the past 4 years, okay, to reach $62 trillion, okay. If we needed a proof that the growth of the derivative market is linked to the safety net and the too big to fail phenomenon, this is a perfect illustration. And until we have not resolved that, and we can have all the legislations, and Dodd-Frank says, bailout is prohibited, but effectively the market is saying, look, I have no problem increasing in enormous manner my credit risk with Citibank in my example. I'm not picking on Citibank because all large banks, I think, are very similar. So the market is saying, look, as I have no credit risk, I can take an enormous amount of credit risk on Citibank because I know that if things become nasty, there'll be someone to bail them out. So yes, we've done things, but I don't feel we've done enough to achieve what needs to be done. Just last word. I think the way to change things is to continue typically what FESSUD is doing, but to add perhaps more systematically, but that's something that's being discussed, the dimension of all that thinking needs to be brought in the right format, in the right manner, at the right time to policymakers, so that they will say, hey, they want you to look clever. Politicians is also that, and if you bring them ideas, make them look good, they will promote the ideas, but they need to be packaged and brought to them. And I think that's something that we should be doing together. Thank you.